think we're live.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Rewind. We got a special guest on tonight. This guy, I just saw him down in Florida. He was actually a special guest speaker at RPM with a bunch of his old friends that he's known in the racing community for a long time. We got Irish Saunders joining us tonight. How you doing, Irish?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No, we greatly appreciate it. We thought it'd be a great fit with the news that we broke this weekend. But first and foremost, we'll kind of lead up to that story. So, everybody knows Irish from Hoosier Race Tires from a long historic career with them. And then Irish kind of decided, you know what, there's other things in life and we get to have some fun. And we want to talk about what you've been doing over the last year and a half. So, after you left Hoosier, what are some of the new projects that you've taken on?
Well, one of them that I've done was I stepped outside of racing for a little bit and started helping one of my best friends with a golf course and a resort. He's got a Pierce Swan Lake Resort. So it's got two 18-hole golf courses. It's got big ballroom for banquets and 100-room hotel. I mean, it's on 500 acres here in Plymouth. So I helped him a little bit promote that. We did things like we had cruise-ins, the first Wednesday of each month. We did a bike night the third Wednesday of each month. So just different types of promotion stuff. And of course, we still, we were involved with Plymouth Speedway for a number of years when it was dirt, and just doing some more promotion. And then a good friend, Chuck Newton, no relation to Bob Newton, that owns Dragon Racing Fuel, called me up. He goes, Irish, he says, everybody in the industry. How about helping me get the word out about Dragon Racing Fuel? Sure, no problem, Chuck. Be glad to help him. So I've been helping him with that. And then last fall, well, actually, I guess it was last spring, a gentleman by the name of David Ward that owns High Performance Lubricants, the oil company over in Manteno, Illinois, and Bobby Seymour from up in Marlboro, Mass, which I've known him since probably 81 or 82, get involved with this Focus Midget series. And we did 4 races at IRP, and it was very, very good. Our last race, they had open midgets there that had the Toyota $70,000 Toyota engines. They had 7 of them. And we also had Focus engines, which that we can either run an Ecotech or a Focus engine. And we had 29 of those cars. But the nice thing about this Ecotech and Focus is it's got a claim rule. So, Drew, if you think Randy's got a engine that's more than 17,000, you go to the tech guy beforehand and you say, I want to claim Randy's engine tonight. Here's my 17,000. The tech guy comes to Randy and says, Randy, you're going to run this feature under claim. If you feel you're in violation of this rule, you have the right to withdraw from the feature right now. If not, bring it down here with the engine running at the end of the feature, and we're going to pull it out and it's going to be claimed. So that way it gives you, Randy, if you got 25,000 in your motor and you don't want to lose it, guess what? You withdraw from it. So you kind of told on yourself. But it's been really good, and I learned that through IMCA. IMCA had a very good claim rule, and it worked really, really well.
We talk about it. A lot of conversation comes not just with race tires, but manufacturers for go fast parts for engines, suspension stuff, shocks, even in the front wheel drives. It's just getting crazy, and it's good to see a series is taking a stance on that to help their drivers keep it as economical as it is. Racing will never be completely economical. The cost versus the pay and reward is not going to usually be even close with each other. So it's kind of cool to see you guys have done that with the midgets. Well, you focused down in Indianapolis this year or last year, and now it looks like you're expanding your schedule a little bit with the midgets this year. If you want to kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, we're still going to plan on having 4 races at Raceway Park in Indianapolis. I still call it IRP, even though it's Lucas Oil Raceway Park, right? So we're going to do still 4 races down there. We're going to do 2 of them at Plymouth Speedway. One is going to be at the Speedrome where they originally started Thursday Night Thunder at. And then the other one is going to be over at Jared and Rick Dawson's track at Anderson. And then, of course, they're looking at having a Wednesday night show during that Million show up at Owasso. So basically 8, 9 races is what they're planning on for this year, which in my opinion for racing these days, less is sometimes more. I got to ask you guys, I mean, in the compact series, how many of your drivers do it for a living?
None. Many of them are business owners themselves with shops or manufacturing companies or speedometer companies. Or very few of them actually have a 9 to 5 job. So
Yep. And I tell people this is a hobby, and hobbies got to be fun and they got to be affordable, or else they're going to find something else to do. And I mean, back in the day, I go back. I mean, ever since I was born, 6 months old, I was going to the races. I started announcing races with my father at 12 years old at South Bend for Louis Freeburn, that used to own South Bend back in the day. And I look at it, and racers used to make excuses for work to go race. Now it seems like they make excuses not to go race because I got a soccer game I got to go to. I got a birthday party I have to go to. Oh, I'd like to do this. And I find in the industry, the toughest thing to get, obviously, is finances. But the other thing is, where do you get help at? It used to be Wednesday night at the shop. We'd bring over, there'd be 6, 8 guys over at the shop helping work on a car. Now you struggle anymore to get people to come and help on your cars. And it's a lot of work.
No, it is. We absolutely struggle with getting not only employees to travel with touring series like the Midget or National Compacts or even weekly racetracks nowadays. It's tough. Nobody wants to do it. Exactly what you said. They want to be at the little league baseball game or at the beach or camping and then race 6 or 8 times or 10 times. The points racers aren't there anymore. So
Right, right.
and that's kind of where we came with our philosophy with the national compacts this year. We did away with the drop nights, so we gave our guys drop nights. We originally were doing 16, 18 races a year on asphalt. It was just way too much. We scaled back down to 10. We got rid of the drop nights, and our car counts exploded.
Yep.
I mean, we went from having 4 or 5 people follow the tour to having 15 to 16 regulars there on a weekly basis. In this year, the complaint we got was, I don't want those throwouts back. So, little news to these guys. In 2026, we're going to have 1 throwout night for the Midwest Dirt Compacts and 2 for National Compacts. So, but the spirit of that is we still need the cars at the racetrack, but we think that'll help keep the overall numbers healthy with it.
Yeah, I think you guys have done great with that, doing that, taking that philosophy and taking that business model. I think it's good. I looked at, I got a phone call from Daytona after Daytona, and they asked me, they said, what do you think the reason that racing is not, I don't want to say it, yeah, it's not as healthy as what it used to be. Let's just face it. But I said, here's the thing. If you look at things like Supercross, you look at Monster Jam, there's young people there. All of us in motorsports and car stuff, we're getting older. And where's the next generation of young 6, 7 year olds, 8 year old, 12-year teenagers that are coming up through the ranks? They're not there like they used to be, like when we were growing up, right? You just don't see it anymore. So you have to make it entertaining. I think that you look at, how many times have we seen racetracks where you're there all night long and you watch the families and the dad's got the kid over his shoulder, the kid's falling asleep. The mom hasn't had a good night because the dad's been drinking beer with his buddy and having a good time and shooting the shit. So they're leaving, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's just not fun. So I've always said, and I use Supercross because my son Eric was involved in motocross, and I always use Supercross as they drop the gate at 7 o'clock, and by 10 o'clock you're going home, and you have been entertained all night long. And I just use that 3 hours. That people don't want to be around more than 3 hours, or you see a race where, and you've all seen it. Let's say it's a 200 lap race. I'm just going to use that number, right? And they have a caution. And what's the first thing? You look up in the stands and you see the fans. What are they doing? They're on their phone. They're bored, right? They're either texting their buddy about it or they're looking at something else, but they're bored. They want to be entertained all the time. I know when Ed and I had the racetrack at Plymouth, we were joking, and I said, you go to a rodeo. You guys have been to rodeos, right? Randy, Drew, you've been to them. And so when they're loading the buck and shoots, who's entertaining the people? It's a rodeo clown, right? So we had a guy, we called him Rollin' Ready. Rick Hummer was his name. And we had that rodeo clown, and he would entertain when there was some downtime. He was going through the stands, interviewing people, making jokes. I mean, and he was just very entertaining. So, I mean, that's what it's all about. You guys have a show that needs to be entertaining to the fans.
No, absolutely, and that's why you look at Kalamazoo Speedway, for example. from Gary Howe being there to now Donnie Ritter, eh, we don't want to be racing past 10 o'clock, ten
Right.
thirty. It's
Right.
three, 2.5, 3 hour show. Doesn't
Yep.
matter who the promoter is. If we got a delay or we're taking a break, they're going to be hooting and hollering at their staff to get the show moving. Just because then you go to other tracks in different areas where they're maybe a little bit more laid back and they just the a 6 hour show, 7 hour show, and they might have a full grandstands at 7:30, but you get there by 10:30, you're not even in the mains, and the grandstands are
Right.
empty, and that's what's killing the sport, and a lot of promoters don't realize that.
Yeah, I did see for at New Smyrna. I was down with Jane Hart there at New Smyrna, and of course they've always had 9 nights of racing, right? And she had a very very good crowd there on that Saturday night for the NASCAR Modified Tour. There had a really good crowd, but the next night was Super Bowl, and she said, "Irish, we probably had 200 people in the stands." And I'm like, oh man. But what they did is they had 60 lap features because it was the 60th anniversary for New Smyrna this year. And it was 60 laps or 60 minutes, whichever came first. And, I mean, I look back on it when we had the dirt race to keep it clean. We had 20 lap features and it was 20 minutes or 20 laps, whichever came first, just to keep the thing rolling and keep people out of there. You know, we used to tell people that we had a 10:30 curfew down there at Plymouth, and we never did, but we let people think that we had a curfew just so we'd get out of there. And all the neighbors, they loved us for it. So it works.
So when you talk about, your role at Plymouth and, how exactly did you get into Plymouth and you've now seen both dirt and asphalt, right? With all your roles that you've had and things that you do you feel like one surface type is maybe more loose with their timing and all that than another? Because I know like sometimes like you go to Hartford Speedway, they're in out quick, Leah and Tim don't want to drag it out, but then sometimes
Yep.
you can go, you know, an hour or so from that track and go to maybe an asphalt track. And well, we used to run back in my day until 4 in the morning, and that wasn't a big deal. And that's really a lot of times, and this is not to be offensive, right? No, I'm the young guy in the room, but like it's that older generation where
Wait a minute, Randy. You're saying we're old? Is that what you're saying?
oh,
Is that what the hell I'm hearing here?
but it's one of those things that it's like, sometimes you'll get someone who'll say, well, back in my day we ran until 4 in the morning. They'll go, Lewis, what do you know? Like you come here and video. Yeah, I video, but I go to a track tomorrow. So
Right.
Lewis gets sleep too at some point. But it's one of those things that do you feel like, one, kind of going back to how did you get involved in Plymouth, and then two, do you feel like you see one surface be more loose with the timing and format of a race night than another?
Well, going back to Plymouth, Plymouth's always been, right here in my backyard. My dad announced there back in the day. I was born and raised here in Lakeville, still live in Lakeville, still actually live in the same house I was born in. But we'd go down to Plymouth, and I'll never forget my son Eric when he got paralyzed the fall of 2010. My wife Sheila was down helping Pat Blunt, Jim Blunt's wife, because Bob Blunt and Tom Smith owned the track, and Pat ran the concessions, and my wife Sheila was down there working the concessions, and I was there for a race for Hoosier. I'll never forget. We got the phone call and said Eric had been hurt really bad at our test track up here. We need to get home. Well, he had gotten paralyzed in a crash that we had up here at the test track, and one day I got a phone call from a good friend of mine. He ran NASCAR modifieds for years. And he says, what are you going to do as a family to be involved in racing? Because he knew that Sheila, myself, our daughter Nicole, Eric, who raced, and then Garrett, our youngest, we went every weekend. We would take the motorhome and the trailer. We'd leave on a Friday night. There was a track we'd go to, the Reeds Racing down here with motocross. We'd race Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday. And I look back now and think, how in the hell did I do that back then? But he called and said, what are you going to do to be involved in racing? I said, I don't know. He said, well, they've been asking me about buying that track at Plymouth, and I don't know. So he called me on my birthday, March 17th, and he says, hey, he said, I just want you to know something. I bought the track at Plymouth, and you're my partner. And I said, okay, Ed, this is March 17th. When do we open? Oh, we got our first race, he said, like April the 1st. I'm like, holy shit, we ain't got much time. We got to get going. And it was going to be a CRA race, right? So I knew working at Hoosier, I could see what tire sales were doing, dirt versus asphalt.
Yep.
And I told Ed after 1 year, and again, here we went with, well, you know what? Let's go on Friday night. Because Plymouth's been a Friday, it's been a Saturday. Hell, back in the day, it was a Sunday night track, right?
Yep.
I said, well, let's go Friday night. And it's like, yeah, let's do Friday because there's other tracks running on Saturday, and we'll just be able to do Friday night, so it'll be great. Well, that was a disaster for us. And I mean, we couldn't get people there. We couldn't get the help there. We couldn't get people there because they were working all day. Couldn't get racers there because they worked all day. So I told Ed, and it was Ed and Tony Stewart and myself. We were sitting talking, and I said, we need to put dirt on this thing. And Ed's like, I'm an asphalt guy. I said, well, you're going to be a broke asphalt guy if you don't do something here. So he says, I'll make you a deal, Tony. He goes, I'll put a small dirt track inside the asphalt track if you come and run a sprint car in it. Tony stuck his hand out. He says, it's a deal. So he went there, and you couldn't have planned this night any better. I mean, it was a short track. We had 410 sprint cars running there. Tony ends up winning the race. And when they're interviewing him, he comes on there and he said, what do you think of the bull ring here at Plymouth? He said, it's the smallest track I've ever raced a sprint car on. But when I come back next year and the big track's got dirt on it, he said, I'll be a happy camper. And Ed looked at me and he says, I think he made up our mind. And so then we put dirt on it the following year. And, it was very successful. It was enough where, we had beautiful grandstands down there that Ed had built there, and Musco lighting. And I mean, we had the Jumbotron that we had gotten from USAC, and it was good. We talk about dirt racing versus asphalt. Everybody talks about speed, how fast you got to go. Oh, we got to go fast. We got to go fast. There was a racer. He's a good friend of mine, which we're going to do a tribute race for him in August at Plymouth. Bentley Warren. He was a super modified guy. You guys probably have heard of him before.
Yep.
And Bentley told me back when we first went to Oswego to test, he says, Irish, just remember one thing. The faster you go, the harder it is to pass. And you know what? He is 100% true. Because even think about dirt racing. When the track's hammered down and sprint cars are running around there wide open, nobody passes anybody. But once it slows down and gets slick, then you see the passing start. And I'm a firm believer that speed belongs on a drag strip, not on an oval track. That's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's just something to think about, and when you look at that.
Now, do you have a preference? I mean, again, with what you've done in the racing industry is just the resume alone, right? But, when I talk to like Chris and Tracy at New Pairs, Tracy is more of the circle. She likes circle track. She used to race, and did that. Where Chris is more like that drag racing kind of deal, right? That doesn't mean he dislikes circle racing, but he would prefer drag racing. So do you have a preference out of everything you've watched, everything you've done in the sport, that if you had to flip it, if you had one choice or the other, left hand or right hand, which one would you go?
Oh, man. Well, I'll really flip you guys off. I say motocross, wouldn't it?
Well,
So
there's a personal connection there with motocross that you were sharing too.
Yeah. So I would say, here's the thing with both my boys, Eric races, he's paralyzed from the chest down. He races, sprint cars with hand controls. Garrett, my youngest, he never raced motocross at all. But I was gone for a race at Hoosier, and they put him in a front wheel drive car at Plymouth one night. His first night out, he won. I'm like, where in the hell did this come from? Good God. Ed called me and goes, this kid's got something. And Garrett, he works very hard on all his brother's cars. But, we ran the GLSS series with the sprint cars. Garrett ran the little 500, which is an event to go to, And then now we're going to do our own midgets, then run the midget series. Garrett ran some midgets. So, which one would I rather take? Gosh, that's tough. I mean, I like dirt racing. But one thing I got spoiled with Plymouth being dirt, it was 20 miles from my house. That's all the further I had to go. Now, if I want to go, our closest dirt track we're going to go to is going to be up at Tim's track up at Hartford.
Yep.
And they got a couple races up there. Or now they got a race. They're going to have GLSS over at Shady Hill over here in Maderryville. So those are our two closest races. Other than that, we go to Eldora. We got to go to Butler. I mean, it's a little bit further drive, so that takes it, but here again, going on the midget asphalt stuff. Yeah, we got to go to Indianapolis. It's a 2.5, hour drive down there, but we're only going to do 8 of those, So I don't know. Boy, that's a tough question. I mean, I like all types of racing. I like asphalt and I like dirt. So I'd have to throw them both up and say 50-50.
But that's fair because you do have, you have both hands, right? So you could
Yep.
say that it is what it is. Now, when you're doing the midget series, right, you've talked about the scheduling and your philosophy and all that. How did you guys determine where you're going, how you're going? Like, is there a growth plan in mind? Is there like, here's the dot and we're going to go this far from there? Like, what is your ideal behind that?
Randy, you must have been reading my notes before you even said that shit, you know? But yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. We looked at Indianapolis as being the core, right? And I said, you know what? We need to be about 2.5, maybe 3 hours in a circumference of there. And we said, well, okay, we got 4 of them at IRP. Well, we do a couple of them up here at Plymouth, and then we'll do Anderson and Speedrome. And God bless Dan Redmond and Steve Vors, those guys. They wanted us to come to Winchester, but I was very honest, and I said, I don't think the caliber of racers with the All Star Midget Series can really handle. A lot of them can't handle Winchester, right? So I don't think we're there yet. Now, not that we wouldn't want to go there. I mean, that's a great facility, and to be asked to come there is an honor, in my opinion. But I just didn't think that we were quite ready to make that move to go there. But you're right. We want to walk before we run.
Yeah.
We're working right now on getting everything on flow. The 4 races at IRP are on flow, and then we're actually and the one thing I want to try to do at all these races is I want to try to get tribute to people that have been influential in the motorsports industry and recognize them so they can enjoy it now and not have a memorial race when they're dead and they can't enjoy it,
Right.
right? I mean, those guys did that race for me down at IRP last year, and I'm telling you guys, I had so much fun with all my friends that was involved in motorsports. I mean, Stewart was there, Newman was there, Levi Jones, Ron Capps, all those guys that I had dealt with through my years at Hoosier, and they were there and we had a great time and we enjoyed it. So that's kind of where we started with this midget series, and we're just going to kind of branch out, and we slowly but surely want to keep growing, and the purse for the average promoter is very affordable. We're not, you're not going to make millions of dollars off this thing running these midgets. It's a hobby, and we want to make sure that we take care of the guys in the back. As a matter of fact, Landrum Springs was very, very generous at the end of the year. They came to us, or I came to them actually. I went to them first, and I said, "Hey, would you guys want to help with this race at IRP? We got sprints and midgets. Well, how many cars are you going to have?" I said, "Well, probably 30 midgets and probably 25 sprint cars." And they looked at me and said, "How about if we give you a BOGO?" I said, "A BOGO?" "Yeah." He said, "You give every driver in there a buy one, get one free from Landrum Springs." And I'm telling you guys, the guys that ran 20th, you think you gave them $1 million.
Yeah.
It was like, gosh, this is great. I could use it. And some guys won't use it. They might say, "Hey, I got a Swift deal," or "I use only iBox Springs," or whatever. But you know what? It was the effort that we put out to try to give somebody something, besides, because let's face it, I only know the one guy that's happy at the end of the night at racing, and that's the guy that won.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm telling you, Drew, Randy, you guys got to try this one time. Ed and I wanted to do this before we leased the track out. I wanted to do a runners up night. I wanted to pay first place money to second place and second place money to first place, but the winner gets a 5-foot trophy. And let's see if they race for the trophy or if they race for the money.
I bet they go for the trophy.
You damn right they will. I mean, it was funny. I was speaking at the midget banquet up at Grundy, and Jimmy Anderson had won it, and I brought that up to him. I said, "Jimmy, would you run for the trophy or you run for the money?" He said, "I'm running for that trophy." He says, "I can always have that. That money will be gone, but I'm running for that trophy." Yeah. And that's it, and it's the memories that you make, along the way.
It's back to being the entertainment part of it. It's where we certainly miss that. So let's swing back to Florida real quick. You got a chance to speak in front of all these promoters, one of the highest attended RPM meetings in a long time at Daytona. You got to sit down with some old friends, but right before you went on there, you kind of got interrupted by one of your dear friends, Ryan Priest. So that was kind of neat to see Ryan come in and give back to the short track racing promoters. But Ryan said some things as a racer, and I kind of need you to help me refresh it because it really hit a stone where he's a racer that really cares about short track racing. So what are some of the key things that Ryan said in his quick 3 or 4 minute speech?
Well, realistically, I don't listen to nothing he says. You know that, right? But he, no, Ryan's a very, very good personal friend of mine. I've known him when he started. Actually, I knew his grandfather, Bobby Judkins, used to have a modified, used to race at Riverside Park back in the day. And Ryan is one of them racers that will never, he's like Tony. He never forgot where he came from, right? And he will never forget where he came from. There was somebody came up, then we were at New Smyrna, and he was getting ready to run his late model. And somebody said, "Hey, you seen Priest around here?" I said, "Yeah, he's underneath the car changing a gear in his car." They said, "He's what?" I said, "Yeah, he ain't afraid to get his hands dirty, you know." And I think he even said something up there that he had dirt under his fingernails, you know. So he's never forgot where it came from, and he takes time with the fans. He's just not arrogant. He's not cocky, and he just appreciates everything that people do for him, you know. And just a man, I just can't tell you enough. I mean, watching him win the Clash was, I was driving to Daytona actually, and I heard it, and I was just, it was crazy because as soon as I heard him win it, I called Stuart and I told Tony, I said, "Hey, did you see he won it?" He goes, "Who won what?" I said, "Priest, he won the Clash." He goes, "I'm at Walmart." I said, "What are you getting, diapers for your kid? What are you doing at Walmart, you know?" And he said, "No," he said, "We're using those Stilo helmets or Stylo helmets, whatever they were." And he had to go get some construction paper because the tear-offs weren't right for his new helmet. So he was there, but he didn't get a chance to see it, but he was going to shoot him a text. And you know, I can send Ryan a text, congratulating him or do whatever. And instantly he's right back to me. You know, I mean, he's just, all those guys are, I mean, they you know, I look, Christopher Bell, we were talking to Christopher, I don't know, it was around Christmas time. I was talking to him. I said, "Hey, we're doing these midgets." He goes, "Count me in for some Thursday night." He says, "I want to come back there." He said, "I want to run a midget." Right. Okay, that's great. So a lot of these guys want to do that. Ryan Newman, he wants to get Brooklyn, his daughter, he wants to get her in a midget. He wants to run some midgets this next year. So, you know, those guys just really haven't forgot where they came from, you know. I can't get Harvick to let Keelan run, especially now since I saw today he signed with Toyota for a long-term contract with Toyota. Keelan did. But I'm telling you, jump on that bandwagon because that kid's got some talent at 13 years old, for sure.
You know, and to Keegan's point, I've heard that he's being trained, I don't want to say trained, but he has the most professionalism for a 13, 14-year-old. Just, you know, thanking the promoter for having him at the racetrack, being cordial to all his race fans. I don't even know the Harvick family, but that's the biggest thing I've heard in this small little racing world is how good of a kid he is, and he's going to be a star when he grows up because he's been brought up right in the sport.
You're 100% right, Drew. He is. I'll never forget. We were at it. He was actually doing some tire testing for me on my last year there. I had him there, and the other one is going to be Landon Lewis, another good young man that's going to be got a lot of talent, you know. And Keelan come up to me, he goes, "How are you, sir?" I said, "Keelan, my name's Irish." He goes, "Yes, sir, Irish." I'm like, you know, Delana. I said, "Kevin, that didn't come from you. That had to come from Delana, those manners." He goes, "Yeah, you're probably right about that one." But yeah, the kid is very, very polite, very cordial, and he's going to make it. There is no doubt. That kid's on the right path. No doubt. They brought him up right.
Nope. So let's just rehash real quick. So some big news that we broke this week. June 27th, the midgets will be at Plymouth Speedway, and I believe August 6th, which is a Thursday night for Thursday Night Thunder. There's gonna be two divisions racing that night: National Compacts and the midgets. Or are we adding something else?
Well, on the 27th, a friend of mine by the name of Elliot Miller, he owns Monster Truck Throwdown, and he's had some unbelievable. He's bringing just a couple of his trucks in there, and we're gonna crush some stuff. What I really want to do is say, hey, the winner of the midget series is going to get in that monster truck and get to crush a car. See if those midget guys got enough balls to go ahead and get in there and do that, right? But yeah, we're going to have monster trucks in for that one. But then on the Thursday Night Thunder, we'll have the National Compact Series in there, along with the All-Star midgets for sure.
Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate you taking your time. Let's give a plug over to your new fuel job as well too. Where can they reach out to you if they would like to get their track involved, or even some race teams or traveling?
Yeah, it's Dragon Racing Fuel. Dragon Racing Fuel, like I say, it's owned by Chuck Newton. He's from Lafayette, Indiana. You can go on their website, Dragon Racing Fuel. Newton Oil is the name of his company. He does diesel, he does regular fuel, racing fuel. And you know the thing about it, we were just down at McGinnigal's, and I saw Dwayne down there Friday with Chuck Newton that owns it. And like Chuck said, we don't make 8,000 gallons of race fuel. We make small batches and make sure that they're consistent every time they go out. So that's the one thing that I always liked when we ran race fuel in the motocross bikes. Now, of course, we're running methanol in our open wheel stuff, but and they've got methanol too. But it was just so consistent. We knew what we had week in and week out, And they make E85 also, which I know a lot of the front wheel drive guys and compact guys were running E85 because they like that ethanol in there. It gives it a little bit of extra power. So yeah, Dragon's a great company, and I really like Chuck Newton. He's a down to earth, true racer, and just a great guy to be involved with.
No, we certainly greatly appreciate you thinking of us. I would have never thought about Plymouth Speedway, and I honestly had to say, "Are you serious?" But we're excited to be there. I know our drivers are as well. I'm sure we'll cross paths at many racetracks this year, dirt and asphalt. And where can they find the information on the All Stars Midget Series as well, too?
Well, we're working on that. It's we all have day jobs and we're working on it, but there's an All-Star on Facebook. There's an All-Star Midget group that you can go to, All-Star, National Pavement Series. You can go on there and like that page on Facebook, and that kind of will give you, but we are working on getting a regular website up that we have for the All-Star Midgets.
I see. I just built my own website on a few weeks ago, and building your own website and doing that. So I know that takes a lot of time. So I'll make sure, Drew, that we'll tag the page. That way people can go and follow it. So once we're off and I can go over to Facebook and click like on it, Irish will get that out there. That way people can go and follow that, especially since you said you're coming up to Hartford for a couple times, right? Like,
yep.
That's gonna be right in our back. Obviously Plymouth is in the backyard. So
where are you guys at on Memorial Day weekend?
I don't think I'm anywhere, to be honest with you.
I think you guys need to come down to Little 500.
I might be able to make that happen for myself, because I have to double check my schedule. I don't know. I have so many races that get added later on that I don't even know where I'm at tomorrow. So
you're doing great. And I tell you, thanks again, guys, for what you do for motorsports. I mean, it's really glad to see that you guys have the passion for it and can have this hobby that we all love. Keep trying to grow it and build it and make it as best we can.
Oh, Drew, did you hit a red button there?
I didn't hit any button. I think Irish said he had enough.
Okay. Mid-sent. Yeah, we lost him. All right. Yeah. I'm like, that's why I kept my hands this way, because I hit a button earlier. I'm like, no, I can't hit that button. So
no, I'm scrolling. I'm watching something else. We're winning the battle of Monday Night Raw.
Yes.
No,
yeah.
I was gonna say, I guess. Well, thank you for Irish for joining us. He must have got a phone call, I would guess, is what.
Oh, and bumped him off. Well, I know Johnny hasn't popped in yet. So did you want to send him that link one more time? Just be like, hey, Judge, we need you for and we got the mayor here, right? So, we already, here's Irish. He's back. Oh, can't hear you.
He was calling in. You know who it was? I'll tell you who it was that just tried calling in. Do you remember Andrew Hain that announced?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was Andrew. And I'll tell you what, I got to tell you, that guy, I'm so proud of the way he's got his life straightened back out, and actually I was talking to him today about, I think we might need an announcer. I said, for maybe those 2 midget races, and he's like, yeah, count me in. So yeah, that was him. So I apologize for that.
I will say this about Andrew. He does take the announcing job seriously. He takes it with a pride, because I don't know if he still does it, but he used to be the only announcer that would wear a shirt and tie to the racetrack.
Yep. He announced for us for years down there at Plymouth, and his favorite saying, I always just say it. Actually, my wife used to say it all the time. Let's make some noise. That was his favorite line, But yeah, he's done a great job, and I'm very proud of what he's done with his life, turned it around.
No, that's exciting to hear, and it was always good to be around the racetrack. If it was Kalamazoo or Plymouth or CRA, he's been a lot of places. He's good announcer.
Yeah. But again, I wanted to thank you guys for everything you're doing for motorsports. I mean, I know sometimes you got to be thick-skinned, because you get everybody. I'll never forget. I got to tell you a quick story about the dirt down at Plymouth. People say, "Oh, it's too dusty. Oh, it's too rough. It's too." I got up at the driver's meeting. I said, "I'll tell you what, guys. We're going to fix this. You are? What are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to make the track so it's so smooth. Every week it'll be smooth. And you know what? There'll be no dust. Great. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to take the dirt off. It's going to be back to asphalt. And I never had one bitch after that. Nobody complained after that. So, but it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And, you know, a lot of people don't understand what promoters go through. Man, it's tough sometimes. I mean, when Jane Hart tells me that New Smyrna on Super Bowl Sunday, she only had 200 people in the stands. That's tough. That's really tough down there.
Well,
Not only. Sorry, let's go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say that's a good lesson, because even from the media side, those who know me know I very much wear my emotions on my sleeve, right? And sometimes, right, you can let it go. I was a special ed teacher for 6 years. I saw a lot of things, but at the same time, sometimes there are things that just get to you, right? Because especially feels like when you're in the best mood, it's like all of a sudden that's when someone throws a shoe at you, and
Right.
sometimes that shoe can be like, okay, I'm letting one or two people, 5, 6 people get to me when I have how many other countless people, right, that are on the side. And so that's one thing that it's like, I don't call it like a thankless job, but it's one of those, it's like you have to just remember, right, that there's always going to be that small group wherever you
Mhm.
go. And the bigger you get, that group might
Oh,
be
yeah.
a little bit bigger, but it's still smaller compared to the whole. And
Yeah.
sometimes, that's hard to remember.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, it's such a grind. It got to be such a grind sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I hope it rains this weekend. I just need a weekend to just unwind, and don't have to worry about, geez, are we going to be able to make the purse tonight? Are we going to have enough people in the stands? What's going on? Are we going to run out of food? Are we going to, I mean, it's just such a, to bring people in and then to have them complain, it just kills me. But it's a grind. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, even I'm sure there's racers that even say, God, I wish it would just rain out this weekend so I could have a weekend off to regroup. Right.
Yep. And
So
sometimes you need that break.
yeah.
Just, I always tell people, like when I was teaching, we'd get near spring break, but it's usually that first week of March, coming up next week, where it's just that. Now this year they've had a lot of snow days, but
Mhm.
when you've not had like a winter like this, and you're just like, you get to that point in the calendar where
Yep.
you're like, we're just kind of tired of seeing each other, not because we dislike each other, but
Yeah.
it's just you see each other 5 days a week for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks, and you just get to a point where you're like, is it spring break yet? And so sometimes I feel that way in racing, that you just kind of, sometimes when it gets really hot outside, or it's really cold, or you just,
Yep.
drivers struggle with their cars, right? This breaks, that people just kind of get to a point where sometimes those rainouts, they stink, because obviously tracks get absolutely annihilated on social media.
Yep.
But it's like, but you know what? Everybody just kind of needed this time, even though it
Yep.
sucks. We want to be at the track, but sometimes not being at the track for a week makes you just miss it that much more, to go, you know what? At least we have a track to go to.
Right. And you know what? Drew said it earlier. Yeah. I mean, Drew, you scaled back on your schedule, right? And you saw things pick up.
Yep.
That says it right there. Less is more sometimes, and I'm a firm believer of that,
You
firm
know,
believer.
it does kill me because we would love to go to a Lucas Oil Raceway or a Freedom Factory, or we do go to Slinger once a year now. But the honestly, once we scaled back and stayed more central with maybe just one race like Slinger outside of our demographic, it really helped that we're going to the Plymouth. We're staying within a 3-hour radius,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still able to keep some new tracks and rotate them in and out, like Flat Rock and Toledo. And
Yep.
so while it might not be as sexy not being at North Wilkesboro or Richmond or Bristol, at the end of the day, our numbers are healthier, and it'll keep us in business longer.
Yep. No, I think it's a good business plan. I think you're 100% spot on with it for sure.
Now, do you think so? To think about that, because we have Johnny Russell, who's supposed to be joining us tonight from M40,
Hmm.
right? Now you're doing a traveling group where you're running certain races. You've also been a promoter owner, where you've been on that side where you're running weekly. You're doing all these things. Where do you feel like weekly racing should be right now? Do you think track should focus more on like New Paris says, a 3 weeks on, 1 week off, but that 1 week off is like a night of destruction, or sometimes they do a day off. Springport was every other week. Do you feel like it's you go to more of that style, or do you feel that even is it like a tricky slope?
I think if I had a racetrack, if I was back doing a track again, I would scale back. I would not do a weekly show. I wouldn't. I would do special events. You know, Dave Bice, Howard Bice used to own a Villa Speedway. I'll never forget when we first got Plymouth Dave came to me. He goes, my dad Howard. I said, yep, my dad used to announce for him at a Villa. He goes, my dad always said, people get tired of seeing the same movie every week, don't they? They want to see a new movie. And I use that a lot of times, it's the same movie. They don't want to read the same book. They want to have something different every week. That's why somebody said, you're kidding me. You're going to bring monster trucks in with the midget show? I said, and a compact, I said, yeah, why not? People want to see it. It's something different. Now, if you had monster trucks every week, it wouldn't be a special then, right? So when the compacts come in, it's going to be something special that you don't see every single week. So I look at weekly racing. We always see, we've seen some tracks go away, right, all over the country, and I use this saying. I said, there's not enough inventory to fill the shelves anymore like it used to be.
Right.
Inventory is drivers and fans, and the shelves are the racetracks. So sometimes some of them have to go away to make the other ones healthier. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
And I remember the first time we talked on the phone, not last year, I think it was the year before, when you're going to have a Daytona watch party at Swan
Mhm.
Lake.
Yeah.
You and we talked for a little bit, and I remember that's one of the things that stuck with me, right? Andy Bozell tells me a few stories, those stick with me. I remember we were talking about some places, and you were sharing that thought, and you said the same thing, almost word for word, like, yeah, it kind of stinks to think that way, but at the same time, I think of a Saturday, right? If I had right now, I'm just one person doing my media all over, right? Trying to do as many as I can. That I just can't get everybody on my schedule as much as I try. That's how big Top Row has gotten since I started in 2022. It wasn't my master plan; it just kind of happened, right? But it's like, man, even if I had 5 of me running around on a Saturday, we still couldn't. I couldn't cover every racetrack that is in my DMs or emailing me saying, "Hey, we have this event. We'd love to have Top Row there." I don't. I don't. I'm already at Speedrome, or I'm already going
Yeah.
down to Salem, right? Or I'm going somewhere, or New Paris or Galesburg, where I'm like, there's there's only one of me, and
Yeah.
even if I had 5, it'd be hard to cover everywhere that reaches out. Not every week, but there are some
Right.
weeks like July and August where I could have 10 of me, and we might cover everything.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're 100% right. And everybody talks about streaming, right?
Yep.
Well, yeah, streaming. It is what it is. I mean, everybody for $150 they can go get Flow and they can see over 1,000 races in a year, right? And you don't have to drive to Raceway Park or whatever. I mean, but you got to give them a reason that it's worth going there, right? Whether it be, and again, I go back to Supercross that, they make every one of those riders, they have a fan zone and they let the fans come into the pit area and they make every rider has to stand there and sign autographs to all the fans. Now, you can't do that on TV, right?
Right.
So there's a reason why there's 50,000 people at Lucas Oil Stadium for a Supercross, right? So it's got to be entertaining. You got to do different things. So yeah, you're right. You're right.
And some people are really struggling with that. And again, not to, but some of the older school fans, that's a question after PRI, because I went to Tops this time for the first time. This was
Mhm.
my second PRI, but I ventured up, to that area once I learned that media could be up there. And man, I came away with so much Irish, so much that I'm like, I learned a ton that I wouldn't have even known. And I felt like Gary and Randy and Donnie and Drew and Leah have included me in a lot of conversations where I feel like I have learned stuff. But I mean, even walking away from that, listening to what Madison International is doing and all these kind of things, right? You just pull so much from those learning lessons. And the one big thing that is a big debate is it racing or is it entertainment?
Right.
It's kind of, and it's in that spot where you get a lot of people who are saying it has to be entertainment, right? We need to keep people busy while they're there, but then you get those really, really old school who are like, no, this racing, we don't need all this other stuff, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, you can't survive on all that other stuff anymore, like they could, 20 years ago, maybe.
Right. Yep.
15 would be probably on the low end of that, but really probably 20, 25 years ago, early 2000s, late 90s, would be probably when that kind of really took a big switch for a lot of people.
I agree 100%. I mean, it got to the point where It's got to be entertaining. And I was very fortunate in my 43 years of being at Hoosier that I saw stuff that worked and it didn't work all over the United States. And I would always look and say, hey, you know what? That didn't work over there. So now, I'm not going to try that here. But I saw that this worked over here. Yeah, we're going to try that. So I was very, very lucky in all my career to see things that worked and didn't work.
Yes.
And I wanted to stay away from those things that didn't work.
Well, and again, that's when you have all those years of experience, right? And then you add all the experience that you've been able to build in. You really get to kind of know, hey, this works, or I saw 5 other tracks try this and it definitely didn't work for them. We're not going to make some magic happen here and be the 6th track and all of a sudden lightning strikes.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's like I say, there's been some things that it's like, well, that didn't work. I don't want. And Schrader and I, we talk about it a lot. Kenny and I do. He said, yeah, we've seen a lot of stuff, and I always have to tell that Kenny Schrader story. And Drew, I think you were in there when we talked about it at Nazareth when he won his championship. He was in the bar and he was drinking and he was bouncing biscuits off Ben Leba, our Hoosier distributor's head, at that night. Him and his wife Ann, and I'll never forget. He broke, and he went to Sheldon Kinzer and said, "Sheldon, my car broke. I need a car because I can win this championship." And I'll never forget Sheldon, big hands, And he said, "Well, Schrader, I'll tell you what. I'll give up my car if you name your firstborn son after me." And that's why there's Sheldon Schrader. He named him after Sheldon Kinzer. So a lot of stories like that, just unbelievable. And that's Stewart. There's a lot of Tony Stewart stories. I can tell you that for sure. I'll never forget one that we were at New Smyrna. Not to bore you with this stuff, but we were at New Smyrna, and he was racing, and Tom Baldwin was there, and Stewart dumped somebody on the last lap to win, and everybody was ready to fight. He was ready to fight. People were booing him, and we're driving back we're down Tomoka Farm Roads, and we're going back to the beach, and I look over to him, and he's teared up. I said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" He goes, "Irish, I've never been booed like that before." I said, "Well, bud, you got 8 more nights down here at Smyrna to turn those boos into cheers." And he did with Teddy Christopher, and he ended up winning. And yeah, it was a complete turnaround. So that was a great story with him for sure.
I got a Tony Stewart story. It was at the Rumble, and I was with Jason Seltzer and I think Ben Raber, and Jason wanted to get some stuff autographed. I've never been a big autograph seeker, but I was sitting in line with them, and I think we were talking to the people in front of him, and I made some joke, and we were right about to be ready to be next. And all I said was, "Man, Jason, if you don't behave, this guy in front of you is going to kick your ass." And that's what Tony Stewart heard. And his eyes just looked up and looked at me and goes, "What?" And I said, "The guy behind me said it."
Yeah, it's amazing too that Nelson, I think, is Nelson 85 or 86 years old now, Tony's dad, and he still runs a legend car. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, I got a project for you to see if we can put it together before the season is over. I want to get, this would be like a races roundtable, but I want you to put it together with some good conversation. I want one promoter from a track that well, it doesn't have to be in Michigan. It doesn't have to be from around here. It can be dirt. It can be asphalt. One racer and yourself, and let's go for like 60 minutes and just talk from beginning to start to where we're at in racing now. And I think that would be some great conversations.
I think it would be great. And Drew, and you set in probably on his meeting, the one I would pick right now today, Levi Jones.
Yep.
Eldora. Because when he told me that, however, the amount of pizza, of Hunt's Brothers pizza that was served at Eldora Speedway would cover 1.5 professional basketball courts. That's a lot of pizza. And then I didn't know about the beer cans. It was how many silos, Drew? Do you remember how many it was if you stacked them all on end?
He had it down to the exact science. It was
like 1,600 silos of beer cans you would stack. Wow. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun to get somebody like him. And because, here's the thing I tell people, that I was very fortunate in my life that I had a triangle. From working at Hoosier was one point of the triangle, to having race cars and then having the racetrack, and trying to keep that triangle all connected was really tough to do sometimes. And again, Levi, he's raced them, and he's worked on them, and he's written the checks for them, so he knows what it costs to race. So those kind of people, because I mean, how many times have you seen a tech guy come in, said, well, you know what, Drew, with the compact series, why don't we put a shock rule in? Let's change the shock rule, right? Well, what about those guys that they got all those shocks now? What are you going to do with those? It just cost everybody a bunch of money. So I've always said that people that make good tech guys are the guys that's raced them, worked
Yep.
on them, and most importantly, written checks for them. Then you can make intelligent decisions.
No, absolutely, and that's kind of with the roundtable. I think we don't get enough of that. We're lucky enough to sit at RPM or MSPA or some of the Indiana promoters meetings that the drivers don't get to see it, the fans don't get to see it, and I think having a conversation like that with people that are successful, racers that are successful, and yourself, for Hoosier and maybe get 4 or 5 people and we'll bring them in here and we'll just let you guys have the discussion. Lewis and I will just sit back and let you guys. No,
I,
seriously,
I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I think it'd be educational, and I think it would. I think it would help the sport. I really do. I really do.
um, I'll chat with you offline on that. Maybe we can get something together
Yeah.
before we all go crazy racing. I know as we get closer to the season, people are busy, but you'll laugh. But before we got Johnny on the show tonight, after you, I was very intent of getting Robert Yoho on the show tonight. I'm very disappointed he did not respond to me.
Oh, Yoho. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
bad, or indifferent. It's kind of like Mottville. You know what you
Yeah.
get when you get there, but he's a
Yeah.
character. He cares about his speedway. You can tell.
God, I can remember Mottville back in the day when Rich and Rhea Lear. Do you guys remember that name?
Mm.
No, that was before your time. I'm getting a little older, but Rich and Rhea Lear used to own it, and I remember my dad announced there, and I had a bicycle and I crashed. And that night they gave me an Upsy Daisy trophy. It was an upside down trophy. When the car got upside down, they called it the Upsy Daisy trophy, and they gave me that trophy that night. Never forget those things, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe a trophy like that needs to kind of come back. I mean, not that happens too often,
Ooh.
but that could be something. I mean, obviously, in midget, maybe sprint car racing, that's kind of like a bingo board spot. But maybe not so much asphalt midgets, but every now and then you get a car that decides, to do weird stuff.
You might have to look at something like that, and you got it always, you're always carrying it to every one of the compact races. And if somebody gets upside down, hey, I'm sorry for your luck, but here's an Upsy Daisy trophy. And it's got a car that's upside down on a trophy,
Kind of makes me think of if you remember Fox 28, Josh or John Fisher, the 5-degree guarantee, right? If he was within 5 degrees, they would add money to almost like you have that trophy where maybe you have someone who at $1 a week or $5, whatever, like, not that we are encouraging anyone, to win that big pot of gold, right? But like, if it builds up enough, right, there you go. Like, hey, sorry, you went upside down. Here's a trophy, and then inside the trophy is a small little stash of cash, and hey, it's up to $1,200 now. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome. That'd be a great idea. And you bring up Fox 28. I got to remember Dean Hubbard.
Yeah,
that used to work for Fox. Boy, he was a motorsports guy.
Yeah.
And I keep telling some of these stations. I said, somebody ought to get involved in racing. I mean, even in Monday night, you could have the Monday night motorsports wrap or something, and you talk about whether it be the World of Outlaws or a compact or the weekly thing, and it was like, I know they did they had that outlaw reveal the hammer the last race at Plymouth, and I said we need to recognize some of these guys, like I said earlier, and they had Johnny Croy there. Well, I'll be damned if I didn't get called up into the stands, and there's Dave Rorick, and I'm like, holy crap! And I was talking to Kevin the other day, and he said that he's going to have, I guess, super modifieds there. And he goes, and you know what? He said, I think I'm going to get Dave Rorick to be like the Grand Marshal. I said, that'd be perfect. That'd be really good, to do something like that. We just need to recognize some of those guys that's done a lot for motorsports,
We cannot we used to get those articles in the Gazette, Kalamazoo Gazette every Friday night, Berlin, Kalamazoo, the Grand Rapids Press, Channel 8, Channel 3, would always be out at the racetrack with a videographer. We cannot get those guys out at the racetrack.
I know it. It's the younger generation, Drew. I mean, they just don't have any interest in it, I mean, it's sad, but again, maybe we just don't make it entertaining enough for them, right? I don't know. I guess it's more entertaining to watch some 5-foot guy, slam dunk a basketball, I guess. I don't know, maybe, So who knows?
I'm greatly appreciative of what Andy Pepper does for me at Channel 3, but I got to go meet him at a high school parking lot while he's covering a women's tennis just to get an interview about Travis Pastrana coming to Kalamazoo Speedway, or for sake, we got to have some big news story for him to come out to the racetrack. And it's just tough, but
yeah.
well, with
It
that being
is.
said, Irish, we greatly appreciate your time tonight, and I think
absolutely.
we'll have to get with you here in a couple of days and get
For sure.
that round table together. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I'm whatever I can do to help the sport. I mean, this has been, this has been my life, all my life with motorsports. I'll never give up, and I'll always be involved in motorsports somewhat. But I appreciate the fact that you guys take the time out of your lives to try to make this thing better. And I think if we all start rowing the boat the same direction, we can work hard and try to get this thing back to where it needs to be.
Racing is up and down. It was great in the 80s and 90s. It died down a little bit in the early 2000s, but it started to come back a little bit. And I think we're starting to see that swing back now a little bit. We just got to be creative with what we're doing.
Yep. Well, you guys, if you need anything, give me a shout anytime. And thanks everybody for watching this and support the National Compact Series. I mean, they've got a nice little series. You know, it's just enough races. They got good and it's entertaining. It's entertaining to see it. And Drew, you've worked very hard at getting people like TP to, Pastrana to come to this thing. And with a modified, they had the modified up there with Priest running that thing. And I mean, they just, not a lot of people can, get an autograph from Ryan Priest or Travis Pastrana, and those are cool things to have.
No,
Well,
absolutely.
Sorry, Drew.
Go
I
ahead.
had an onboard camera with Ryan, and then I posted that just a few days before the Clash, and then he won the Clash. And I'm like, that's something. And obviously with Travis Pastrana, when he drove one of our semi trucks at Kalamazoo, so it's like, two big opportunities at Kalamazoo where it's like now I can say I have someone who won a NASCAR race, right? And watching him in a modified, something that he did, and just to see him in the pits at Kalamazoo, he talked to everybody. I mean, he wasn't standoffish. He was very much in the mix, even with front wheel drive racers, right? Like he wasn't sticking to the modified group. But anybody who came up, he was talking, shooting breeze as if he knew them for years.
Yeah, he's awesome. Pastrana's awesome. I know when Eric got hurt, Pastrana, he said, "Well, let's do a nitro circus type." And he said, "I can't use nitro circus, but we're going to call it nitro cross." So Travis came in and he brought Jolene and Street Bike Tommy and all of them in there to Plymouth. And we were sitting there the night before, and Travis is like, "You ready to have beer sales go up? Well, what are you going to do?" He goes, "I'm going to start doing beer bongs." He said, "Watch it." And holy shit, all of a sudden everybody had to have a beer bong with Travis Pastrana, so he's quite the guy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He's a good friend too. I've known him for a long time. I'm trying to get Carmichael to get in a midget. Not saying that he's short, but I'm trying to get Carmichael to run a midget. And he said, only if it's on dirt. I said, I can't believe it. So I was talking to Ralph Shaheen, and I told Shaheen, I said, we got to really lean on Carmichael, which I'll see him. I'm going down to Speed Bike Week, and I'll see him down here. So I'm gonna lean on him hard, see if we can get him in a midget. So,
But definitely good luck with that.
I appreciate it, guys.
Make it happen. It's going to be you.
Well, we can only try. That's all we can do, man.
Well, again, Irish, we really appreciate you. You gave us even more than an hour of our time, right? We were on together just before we went live, and that was for 6-7 minutes. So, I mean, we've been together for an hour. So I definitely appreciate you taking all your time tonight to talk with us and be on our second official episode together. So we're just getting this thing started. So we appreciate it.
Well, best of luck to you guys. And if there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Again, thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you.
Yep.
All
See you
right. Bye now.
So I don't think Johnny's going to join us tonight. I sent him a note and I haven't got a response.
Yeah, I sent him. I try not to look at my phone while we're on this, right? But I looked down and I'm like, did the link work? I thought maybe it was, I did something. Even with that, I copied the link that was in here. So, with that, do you want to? We can give him a few more minutes, but do we want to recap kind of like what we were going to talk about with the Kalamazoo banquet while we have a few minutes? And if he's not here by 8:05, we can say, hey, we'll try again.
Absolutely. So next week, let's talk about it while we got people watching us before they all leave us, because it's just me and you. We will have Leah from Hartford Speedway and Megan from M40 or Russell's M40 Speedway will be joining us. So in honor of National Women's Month, I believe we're going to have both of them out here. So they're always great conversations. So we look forward to having them. So Lewis, you put a lot of effort into the banquet this past Saturday with Donnie and Aubrey at Kalamazoo Speedway. Of a lot of good words said, and this isn't a dig at any of the old administrations, as we were talking with Irish.
Right.
Racing just changes over time, and
Yep.
the traditional banquet had died out. It wasn't anybody's fault. It went from when the Jones family would do it at the Radisson, and then the Radisson got too expensive. They moved it over to the Bernard Center. And then I think about when Randy took over the track, we might have done one at the Bernard Center. I'm not sure if we did or did not. We moved it into VFW Hall, and it just wasn't the same. And again, it's not a dig on anybody or previous people that did it. With national compacts, we used to do it in a bar. We used to do it try to do a real official banquet. We've had to change our strategy. Well, now we do it at a go-kart place. We do have a banquet room where we do it in, and then afterwards we all go drive golf carts or go-karts at the end of the night. So with that being said, from the Facebook posts we've seen from drivers, fans, and family members that were there, Firekeepers was a hit. I know Donnie would like to thank Randy for believing in him to do it. Aubrey and yourself and Joel put a lot of effort into the planning of it and the presentation. So Top Row Racing Media, Aubrey Rugg, and Joel Axeru should be thanked along with Donnie. So it was a lot of effort into it, and I'm sure, again, we'll echo what Donnie said. He said thank you. I think I almost saw him tear up a couple times.
Yeah, he gets, so I was one of the first people when we were at Springport together, right? And I was one of the first people that he came to, so excited to tell this idea, but I had to keep it under wraps. I could not tell anybody because there are a lot of people who didn't know. I mean, it was him, I think his wife, myself, and maybe his daughter at that point who knew. And he was, and he was, I don't want to say second guessing, right? But he was like, can we do this? Are we going to be able to do this? Right. Because they had been at the VFW in Springport for a long time. Or is that American? No, it is VFW. And I was all for it. Right. I mean, I was team Springport all the way. And that's something that, I felt very much a part of them. Right. And so seeing him at Springport and doing the banquet at Firekeepers, it was so elevated in presentation. And he was emotional at that because it means a lot to him. And I think that's a thing that, we kind of talked pre-show, Donnie's impact. And it's something that, again, it's nothing against the prior regimes, years back, right? But Donnie just has this impact that even when you talk with him, it's authentic. And it's to everybody, right? He wants people to be happy, but he knows that he's going to have to make decisions that sometimes people aren't going to like, but he can deliver it in a way where you feel okay with it. Right, where you understand because he's going to explain it to you. He's going to be transparent as he can be. But, with this banquet and to see it, hit off, to see people enjoy themselves. And then I stayed with Amanda and Scott afterwards. I was there. I didn't get home till almost 3 a.m, although a half hour of that was lost driving home in the snow. But, I stayed with Scott and Amanda, and we saw a lot of people who are still around playing games, doing different things, hanging out, talking, in the lobby area. I know Blanchard's were there. Donnie Bress was around. Billy Shannon was around. Brock was around, and a couple of racers that we just crossed paths with. And so that's the thing that I remember from Springport is that you got to celebrate and then you got to hang out. And it's very much like a family-like thing. And that's where you can just kind of feel the tilt at Kalamazoo, right? You can feel it go into a direction similar to like at Springport. I don't know that it can duplicate, but that there's a connection, between people. That doesn't mean we don't get mad at each other. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to be frustrated or annoyed on a night. But, Donnie just has a way of connecting with everybody.
No, absolutely. And did you say Brock? I didn't see Brock at all there.
Yeah, he was down by one of the main lobby areas where you come in. So not by the hotel, but kind of like opposite end of that. That's where Scott and Amanda and I ran into Donnie. So again, I can't thank Donnie enough, right? When I messaged him in 2023 after going to Michigan Cup, I reached out and I said, hey, what do you think about having somebody weekly, at your shows? And that's when they were doing every other week. And he'll tell you, he wasn't sure, right? Like we literally crossed paths at Michigan Cup once, and it was a hi bye. Hi, I'm Lewis with Top Row, and that was it. Michigan Cup is not the place to have 20-minute conversations, right? And so, I came up, and just from day one, and we really connected. I financially invested in that place with him, and he saw that, I was someone who really cared about their success, right? Like we had some missions, to beat some people.
Breaking news: he got $50 out of Randy's pocket to give away to a race.
And that went to Christina Rance, right? Like I think she's the one who got it. Yep. And
frame it.
Yeah, and those banners, Aubrey did a nice job on those banners, and that's an elevation, right? Does it have to be? No, but when you walk in there and you see that setup and you see the work that they put into it, that's just something that, again, I hope people truly, even when they need to remember, there's going to be a night that Donnie's going to upset them with something, call's not going to go their way, something's not going to happen in their direction, but he truly does care, and he's giving all of him to this. And so I know, like I said, I appreciate him. We connected at Springport when I was one of the few people he called personally before he announced his departure from Springport. He called me when I was at school, and he said, "Hey, I need you to contact me afterwards." And I'm thinking, what did I do? Right? Like, it's kind of one of those, like, I don't know that I did anything. And so when I called and he said, "How's it going?" And I went, "I don't know yet," because I'm like, is my butt about to get chewed out? Did I miss something that I might have done? And when he broke the news, I felt so heartbroken for him, because he was heartbroken, right? You can hear it in his voice, and he really loved that place. And so, when all the world turned the way that it did, and he came to Kalamazoo, it's like, all right, I got to do the ride along, the Nomad. I got to go in there, and when I got out of it, it's like everyone from Springport, Drew, Donnie, Ronnie, all of them, when they're right there, it's like, this is family, right? I got to experience that, and family's right there. And so, it's one of those things that it's like, it feels different. So again, I just hope people really know how much work that they put into it.
No, and Tyler May, I am watching a tablet, a phone, 2 emails, and trying to do a podcast and run like 18 businesses at one time. So go pound sand. I'm just kidding.
Well, let's do a couple shout outs while we're thinking about it. We've had a couple people who've been in here almost since the beginning. I know, Bougie was one of the first ones who signed in. Obviously we have Tyler May, and when they were doing the Bart Simpson stuff, at Daytona, right, I got to post his car. Obviously Joel's in here, who did a nice job. That was his first official banquet at Kalamazoo, and he got to do that. And that kind of makes me think Irish brought something up that, racing's getting older, not younger. Donnie brought up only 2 Rookie of the Years at Kalamazoo this year. And
I think there was a third. I think we missed one.
Okay. But for sure 2 that they were able to find, right? And that was Mason, who may not seem like a rookie to some people, but obviously in the templates, that was his, really jumping in there. And then from the dirt side, they came from Hartford, Joseph McDonald, with the 3 MJR, Joseph McDonald Jr., really 2 rookies. But man, you look at those points, 30 front wheel drives, and a lot of those points, if you get a My Race Pass, are tight. That could have went a couple of different ways there. So, there's a lot of talent in the front wheel drive street stocks. I tell people, you're not going to find a better street stock race than Kalamazoo. I don't care what track it is that's listening. Like, you're not going to find better. That doesn't mean the others are bad, but when you have 6, 7, and that's not a joke, by the way, but 6, 7, 8 champions on the track defending or past, man, you're getting something good there.
No, and the other thing to keep in mind is we want to thank the Ritchie family.
Yes.
There's not many tracks that do a points fund. There was over $23,000 paid out by Kalamazoo Speedway to its drivers last week. So thank you to Randy and his family for giving back to the racers. And then a couple of awards that we want to talk about before we get off here. One of the last lap awards, Donnie said it best, is nobody there more than Skeeter. There's nobody there that does more than Skeeter with knowing where the lights are, all that stuff. Skeeter's scaling back next year. He's not retiring, but he did get the last lap award.
Yeah.
Two guys that are retiring that still will be around the speedway, Kenny Head and Billy Shannon, who have been there longer than me, are now retired from racing full time. They didn't say they wouldn't be involved in racing in one way or another. Very emotional for all three of those guys, and the room was standing with some tears in their eyes for 10, 15 minutes.
Well, for Skeeter, I remember when I did his spotlight, right? I did a short track spotlight for him, which is on Wednesdays from 5 to 8 p.m. On Top Row Racing Media and on the website. When I had Keith Reed, right? There are a lot of people messaging me going, that's his real name. Well, he does have a first and last name. He does have to have that, right? I guess he doesn't have to, but everyone always knew him as Skeeter. I shouldn't say nobody, but there are probably very few people who knew Keith Reed, right? And he's been in racing, right? He raced lawnmowers back when they went super, super fast, and very different than the lawnmowers you see now, at least in our area. And then obviously with Billy, that was very emotional, right? You got the video in the background that showed their last lap together with some different angles that people hadn't seen before. Kenny, obviously, he's staying in the game with the mini wedges, and I'm excited for the future of the mini wedges that they're doing. Him and I have talked about a lot of different ideas. Some of it he's mentioned online, some of it not. So I don't want to give all the way the secrets, but it's going to be a true developmental program. And they have some classes, educational classes that they want to introduce. For the mini wedges, I talked about, they might have a day where they don't run 2 heat races, which I know everybody loves heat races, but that they don't run 2 heat races that day, where maybe they take part of that time and they do promos, not like wrestling promos, right? Where they're going to start dropping the Stone Cold Stunners and all that, but promos of how do you talk when you win? How do you have a victory lane interview? How do you, if you have media comes up, because the goal of the mini wedges is to convert them to, big cars, big stars, right? And so, they're doing their part now. And I said that would be a true developmental system where, hey, one day if your kids are here, Taylor, myself, and others are going to go around and we're going to, interview kids just to prepare them, right? That was something I saw at the Rumble in Fort Wayne. And I get it as a former teacher, right? When kids who stand in front of the room, some of them just have it and they are chatty Cathy's when they get up front, and then others freeze. You see them at the playground and they'll talk your ear off, but the minute they're in front of a crowd, they're not for that, right? And so so that's something that I know they just have a lot of different plans, how to be a sportsman, win and lose, so just really true lessons that are going to develop them not only as a racer, but as a complete person too. So and obviously Billy said, hey, I'm going to be around. He's not going to be a stranger. So I know people are excited for that too. So 3 very important people that I'm glad that, we recognize on Saturday.
Yep. Just a couple of last things for housekeeping here, because I'll probably be up till 4 a.m. again tonight. But we want to thank our sponsors for National Compacts. Give you a chance to plug the Top Row Racing Media supporters. Of course, RevX Products, 2BG Tune, Mill Brand Racing Components, BK Racing, US Speedo, Ray Powell and them, great people. The list goes on. Accent Roofing, Quality Graphics has become aboard as a sponsor. Not many people know we have a national brand sponsor that sponsors Pit Viper Sunglasses. We didn't give them a mention last week, but the National Compact website is kind of up. We have a shell now, so when you go to nationalcompacts.com, that is not the completed website. Frankie has been working hard in the transition. I think I gave him a heart attack over the last 3 days, and now he's sick. So we will have it up. The NCTS schedule is up. My Drew at National Compacts email is back in operation. We will be using the world's fastest compacts.com. You can still use the old traditional ways to get there, but right now nationalcompacts.com is the only way to get to the website. There's not a lot there. There's a contact form. You can send me a message through there. We want to talk Enduro March 21st. You're going to see a lot of stuff. We're not doing pre-registration for that. We'll talk more about that next week. Big cars. We need those big cars. Trucks, Monte Carlos, Crown Vics. We do very well with the big cars at Hartford and not very well with the little cars. We do very well with the little cars at the asphalt tracks, but not well with the big cars. We've separated them. My expectations would be we have 25 big cars and 50 to 60 little cars. That would be a great day, but we need your help. We touched about this last week. We know there was some errors made at the last Enduro that were kind of out of our control, and we did the best we could. Please forgive us on that. Nick Genema will be there to tech cars. Johnny and his team will be there in place. We are not doing pre-registration. You show up, you pay your registration for $50 for each class, and then you get in line for tech, and the first one that gets through tech is where you start. And so if you want to start up front, get there early. I saw Craig Everidge is going to be having his boy race again, so they're going to have 1 or 2 cars. They're excited about that. And then we also have I keep hearing a beep, so it must be the Network Solutions chat that I never closed out 4 hours ago. But April 11th, we just put some information out about that we'll just announce $2,000 to win for the Ohio Wheelman Super Stocks, which is the street stock class here. 1,000 for second. It is an American race tire. We encourage you to check out the rules. We'd like to see 25, 30 street stocks. I'd be happy with 15 to 20 because I know they put on a great show. The Midwest Dirt Compacts and the Crown Vics versus the Factory Fords will be there. It's not going to be a stout payout for the Factory Fords. We just want to put a good race on. We're not here to compete with other people that have a race that day. We just want to put on a good show. So
just remind people, not to interrupt, but just remind people when you say Factory Fords versus Crown Vic / Super Troopers, that's at Hartford. For anyone who may have missed it, that's Hartford basically first. M40, right? It's their dirt rules at Hartford, and then the asphalt rules at M40 and other surrounding tracks.
Talking to Johnny, their rules are very close to each other. I think they're on board with each other. So Hartford cars should have no issues with racing, but you have to conform to the Hartford or M40 rules. We've heard some Mount Wand guys that are coming down, maybe some compacts and Crown Vic guys
on that. Yeah.
So we just want to have some fun, but I'm more excited about the juice boxes. These are Radio Flyer go-karts. There will be a chance for some people to probably come out of the stands and have their kids come race in it. They do have some kids that actually just follow to race in the series, but Will has like 5 or 6 of those carts, including his son will be racing. Should be fun. It's $20 to get in, $35 pit passes. We're only a month away from these 2 shows. And there's a lot of work, and I don't think people understand the amount of work that I do for both of my series, my leasing company, Kalamazoo Speedway, Race Reach Media. Gosh knows what else I got going on. Undertaking this podcast probably wasn't the greatest business move, but we're gonna have fun doing it. Like we had a lot of fun with Irish tonight, and I think we're gonna have a lot of different guests, and that's why we brought it up with Irish about doing a roundtable. I would enjoy just sitting back and let them, have one moderator on it. You can moderate it.
Yeah.
Have Irish do it. I'll just sit here in the little corner watching. So,
well, we can get up to 10 people in this. So, we can obviously we probably wouldn't have 10, but it could. We could. There's a lot of things that we can do with this, right? And so that's something that I'm excited for. It didn't feel like an hour, when I looked at the clock. We were obviously trying to get Johnny and, just make sure like everything was okay too. Right. But it never with Irish, it never felt like you sat there and went, man, this feels like a while. It just time flew really fast, and a lot of great stories. So I definitely appreciate his time that he took with us tonight.
Nope. And we're doing okay on time. So I will let you hammer your points, your sponsors, and
right now we got one Tri-State Sprints. They're the first couple are in the works, hoping to seal a few deals here just to help out. That's something that last week, Top Row finances seemed to be a popular discussion between a lot of people. And, I have not made money on this. It's never been secret, Drew, that, the pages are monetized, right? Like, I don't charge drivers for onboard cameras. I don't charge people to watch. If you go to Flow, it's 20 something. If you go to Dirt Vision, it's 20 something, right? Like they can access all this. And so it's not ever been a secret. No one's ever said they're not, right? But the difference between monetizing and making money are 2 different things. And Top Row is definitely not making money. You know, over the last 3 years combined, $18,000 in the hole. So that's a big number, you know, for people who do the math. That's a big number. So
You want to swap companies?
no, that for you, that's a race night, right? Maybe, possibly, right? Like you haven't had one that bad, but you know that could be a race night. So certainly not. You know, I'll keep doing what I'm doing, not complaining. But you know, even as media people, right? If I were a photographer, I'd have a camera that I have to upkeep, right? Everybody has all these things. I see David is in here, and he took on wearing a chesty for me at Kalamazoo this year, and it's his. Nobody else gets to wear that. KTS has their own. He has his, but just to get him equipped with, you know, camera and chesty, you know, that's almost $400 right there, you know, to do all of that. Luckily, I already had the camera.
I had to be careful. And now that you explained what chesty is, I shared his camera.
Yes, yeah. That's what he wears. That's what gets that view that people saw, that track view when people are coming on. And I still have to go back and download all of his footage from last year. It just got to a point where I'm like, David, it's going to be a little bit, and now it's almost March, so it's been too long. But there's a lot of costs that go into this. You know, I know what Kendall has, Sabrina has, so I don't think a lot of people always understand that. So that's where right now I have tri-state sprints, but like I said, there's a couple people in the works who I've been talking with. Quality Graphics being one. They're already on my car, so now it's just what does it look like for cameras. And then there's one that's in my local town that I'm talking with, and then another who I reached out to today who does construction-y kind of businessy sort of things. I don't want to give it all the way away. But you know, we're talking, and so certainly, you know, hoping to have that list a little bit longer, at least by March 21st, when the first full program happens. So
no, absolutely, and we greatly appreciate your time helping with this. So it was very good numbers tonight, I saw.
Yeah, we've stayed pretty consistent between 23, 22 has kind of been the low number. When we first started, the low number was about 19, but now it's 19 again. But, you know, we've been pretty consistent at 22, 23, up to 30, 35 at one time. And that's stayed pretty strong, pretty steady. So again, everyone, we appreciate this. Is our second official show. I even forgot to put some of the graphics on when we started the show. So that was my fault. You'll see them pop in like 10 minutes late. But for a second show, again, I'm this is exciting. And next week to already have Leah and Megan lined up for Women's History Month. You know, obviously women in motorsports is a big deal. Both have, I believe, been on Melinda's Russell's show. I can't remember if Megan was. I know Leah was for sure. So I'm excited to have them next Monday. Maybe, you know, Johnny might join in. I don't know. Like, he might be a part of that too. We were hoping to have him tonight. So certainly, guys, apologize that he didn't join us, but thank you for hanging around and taking the time to listen to Drew and I and Irish.
Nope, absolutely. With that, I got nothing else. I had something in my head and it went away, so I'll remember 4 hours later. But that's okay.
All right.
It was a lot of fun, and we'll see you next Monday.
Yeah, next Monday, 7 o'clock, same place, right here on Top Row Racing Media, National Compacts, and maybe next week on Midwest Dirt. We couldn't get that tonight, but at least two. Again, shout out to Carrie. You know, big hugs your way. Obviously, David does a lot. He put me in his coloring book, my logo. Oh, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Robert's a funny story, by the way. I want to make sure that I say this right, but I believe that there's one time, I want to say it was Super Shoe, before we go. Super Shoe, there was something that happened on the track, and he got to go back and watch a video to actually see what happened. I remember walking back there, and he said, "Thank you so much for posting that. I got to see what happened." And so that's one of those things that I always remember. And I'm pretty sure it was Robert that happened to. So if not, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure it was at Super Shoe that happened, or one of the races at Kalamazoo. So again, thank you guys so much. But feel free to share this. We're going to put it on YouTube. I downloaded the show from last week, and this one I'll download once we're done, and they'll be on YouTube so people can watch back. Because Facebook will make it go away in like 30 days since it was live. So anyways, we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you.